Hello and welcome to another AGD tutorial, and today we have a kind of two-in-one feature because as well as looking at something from Atic Atac, that is multicolored enemies, we are also going to be looking at how we can use split variables. In other words, get an extra one or two variables out of the sprites. So as you know, normally we only have three variables for the sprite, three local variables, so to speak. And today I'll show you a continuation of the video where I showed you how you can split variables in two and put that to practical use here. So this is a more practical example of how you can do that. So let's take a look here. As you can see, we're in the game, and I've got several different sprites here, and as you may notice here, we'll just let a couple more of them animate and generate, and you'll see that they are, in fact, rather than a single color, they are actually generating a random color each time they spawn. So different enemies have different colors, and that's happening when the sprites are actually generated. So I'm using an additional variable there. So what some of you may remember is that in the previous Atic Atac video, I used three different local variables, param A, param B, and direction, to control a timer and the vertical and horizontal movement of each sprite. So obviously at that point we had run out of variables, and in order to do this effect, which is to provide different colors, we have to basically do the variable split. If you haven't seen the video that I've made on this about the variables, then I definitely recommend that you watch that first, because I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail as to how it works. In the previous video I did, and obviously if you want to know more about that, then please go back and watch it. And if you haven't seen the previous Atic Atac videos, then that's probably a good idea as well. There's some useful information there, and that will also get you up to speed. So if you look in the playlists on my channel, you'll find both of those. Okay, so let's go back to the original version of Atic Atac, as in the one that we've already been working on before this effect has been implemented, and let's take a look at that. So here is our little sprite. Everything is pretty much the same as the previous example, but if you look now, if we just wait for a sprite to spawn, you'll see that the bat is green, and this sort of fluffy thing is purple, and we have this cyan octopus sort of monster, and every time they spawn they're always the same color, as you can see. And the reason for that is that in the previous code we linked the color of the sprite to the image number. So it was a way of providing a certain amount of variety in that each enemy was a different color, but in the original game we have enemies of many different colors. So let's have a look now and see how we can how this was implemented. As you can see here, we're using param B here as a timer, and we've got param A here and direction, which control the vertical and horizontal movement of the sprite, as you can see here. As I said, there is a video on this, but most of you will be familiar with this basic control movement code. So direction and param A are very small numbers, just 0 and 1 in fact, so for sure we can definitely store both of them in a single number, in a single variable, and that will be more efficient. So let's take a look at how we do that. The first thing we do is we need to set up a temporary variable. So in the previous example I used one of the variables I used was P, but I think in this case I'm going to use the variable opt, because that's a very temporary variable, so it won't interfere with any other variables that you may have used. So that's the first thing that we do. We'll set param A to be opt. The next thing that we're going to do then is divide param A by 16, and as I said in the previous video, that, as I explained, that is a way of splitting the variable into two component pieces. So rather than one variable from 0 to 255, we're going to have two variables from 0 to 15. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use a variable rand here, because again, rand is a very good temporary variable. It's only used when you generate a random number. We only need it here for our multiplication calculation. So we're setting rand to be the same as param a, and now we're multiplying rand by 16. So that is basically giving us a factor of 16. We then subtract that number from the original number there, which obviously we defined as opt. So what that does is basically divides by 16, and that gives us 1/2. By using the multiply and the subtract, we're basically working out the amount that is carried over from the original calculation. As I said, all of this is in a previous video. Don't want to go into too much detail here. If you want to know more about that, go ahead and watch it. But what we have now is we've got two variables, param a and the variable opt, which can now work as two parts of what was originally param a. So we can now use opt. Because of that code, we can now use opt as a local variable, as an additional variable within this script only. So what I'm going to do is I am going to replace direction here with the variable opt, and so I'm just going to go through and change it and basically replace it, just to show you that it will work perfectly. There's only a few instances of direction, so I will replace that, and then obviously what I will have done then is freed up the variable direction to be used for something else, and that's basically what we're going to be using for the color. Now, the most important thing, of course, is that at the end of this script, because this is a local variable, we're going to have to restore param a back to its original value before the script started. So we basically multiply param a by 16, and we then add the variable opt to param a, and that is enough for us to basically put param a back to where it originally was. If we scroll back up to the top here, you'll see, let's just confirm the code. What we did originally was, of course, divide param a. So you can see there at the start, we just a second, there it is. As you can see, we divided param a by 16, and of course we also subtracted the value here. So we're basically restoring it to its original single number. So we're separating it into two numbers, running the script, and then putting it back into a single number so that it doesn't affect any of the rest of the code. Let's take a look, and as you can see, the monsters are behaving exactly as they did before, which is what you would expect. But of course we now have that extra variable to play with, which is of course our objective. So let's look at adding the color. Pretty straightforward little bit of code this, but quite a nice trick if you'd like to try it. What we're going to do is give the sprite a random number in the variable direction in order to give it a random color for every time that it's generated. So again, if you're not sure about this code, it's in one of the previous videos, the Atic Atac enemies code, monsters code. Watch that video if you haven't. What we're going to do here is remove the original code which generated the color, and we're also going to add the code here. So we'll get random 5 here. That's going to give us 5 colors, and we'll add 1, so that will give us a color between blue and cyan. If you wanted it to go up to yellow, that would also work perfectly fine. If you want to add, then just write get random 6 instead of 5. That will give you the yellow color as well. And if you want white in addition, then put get random 7, and we'll set direction to be that number. And then in here, where we previously had a color which was being defined by the image, we're now going to basically delete that code here, and we'll replace it with a simple command to set the color to the variable direction. So we'll just put in here sprite inc direction, and that should be it really. We've just created ourselves an extra local variable and used it to generate a color. Let's see it in action. Let's try it out. Okay, so let's see, now we've got some sprites generating, and there you go. As you can see, we've now got different colored enemies. Even though they're the same image, they're now different colors. So that's more variety, obviously, and that reflects something which is also in the original game. So if you want to have a little bit more variety with your enemies, this is obviously one of the ways you can do it. Normally it would be a bit of a waste of a local variable, but by using this method we can make more local variables available, and as a result we can have a little bit more flexibility, a little more variety. Obviously just makes the game that little bit more fun, doesn't it? Right, well, I think that is pretty much it then for today. Just a short but sweet video. I hope you found it useful. Couple of useful little tips there, I think you'll agree. And what we'll do in another video is we'll start looking at how we can expand on this, how we can increase the number of local variables. It's possible with smaller numbers to store even 3 or even 4 variables inside of a single variable, and that can allow you to do extra things like physics, AI, energy levels, and so on. So we'll take a look at some of those in a future video. In the meantime, keep enjoying the Spectrum, keep enjoying AGD, and I will see you soon. Happy coding. Bye bye.